We are live. This is the Baron and Sadist podcast. Hopefully everybody enjoys. This should be fun. The thumbnail is funny, so hopefully this will be fun.
And if not, you guys just got debated to click on it. There.
You say debated? No, you didn't debate it.
Where does that even come from? I heard the last only time
there's
I heard
actually
that was like
there's actually a podcast. There's actually a streamer on Twitch called Jabater.
Oh, Jabater.
Yeah, something Jabater basically.
Is that like jabroni?
No. And Dusty Trust, Dusty in the comment section. No, it's basically like you've been punked basically, but only it's Jabater.
Oh, you just got jabated.
That's his tagline basically. You just been jabated.
Jabated.
Yeah.
I thought it was like that because I thought it was like that WWE term like jabroni, like how they used to call people jabronis.
Yeah, no, it's actually Jabater. He's actually a popular Twitch streamer.
What games does he play? Does he play Fortnite?
I don't know what games he actually plays, but I know he plays a lot of pranks on people.
Oh shit!
That's where the debate "you just been Jabater" came from. Jabated, basically. You just been Jabated came from basically. So I've never actually seen a stream where he's actually playing a game, but I've seen streams where he's debating people. Apparently, he got kicked off of Twitch though. The last time he debated somebody.
Oh shit!
He got banned.
Well, how? Like, what do you expect? I mean, their Fifis probably got hurt.
Well, no. What happened was, he basically did something where he actually he got in trouble for sexual content, sexually and implicit content, basically. Because he was basically doing the same thing that the female streamers do, basically, where they dance around and stuff like that. But he was actually playing clips from women on YouTube. And he had like 100 people in the chat basically following him and stuff like that. Then he busted out of nowhere and go, "You just been jabated. You simp ass motherfucker has just been jabated." and he apparently did it twice and stuff like that. And he actually apparently Twitch said he's in trouble for sexually implicit or sexual content of a sexual manner, basically, despite the fact that the women be doing worse on Twitch.
It's strange because I feel like I got away with a lot worse. Not necessarily, I didn't have the capability to stream back when I was like playing video games, but it's like before it got all mainstream and popular with Twitch and stuff. It's like I feel like gaming was a much more like male friendly space. It's like males were forgiven for stuff, whereas if you were a girl and you played, like they'd be like, "Oh, you sound like a girl," or "You shoot like a girl" and stuff. But now everything is catered to them.
Yeah. The sad part about that, though, is most of them don't even play video games. They mainly walk around in booty shorts or like spandex pants on their leggings and shit like that, and show off their ass. It's basically low cut shirts. That's basically what Twitch turned into. Basically, that's why they call it Twitch dottery.
Wow. So it's not that like there's nobody playing games. It's just that those ones are the most popular.
Yeah, usually those ones are a lot of the Twitch dots are the most popular. Well, no, it's not the fact that they're the most popular. It's the fact that they just showed them on a front page, basically. Like Ninja's the most popular person on Twitch, but they basically push them off the front page to show like Alinity and like several other people. Basically, that's not even in the top 10. So Ninja gets literally pushed off the front page for Alinity, Pokimane, the Anita chick, the one chick that cussed out her fans and then made a fake ass apology and shit like that.
Oh yeah, that girl who was like, "I'm more important than you," or like you. She was like,
yeah, basically, it's not much money. It's only $5, and the guy says he lost his job, and he's basically doesn't have any money to pay bills. He says he'll pay you when he gets paid. He told her he'll pay her when he gets paid by unemployment or something like that. And she says it's only $5. You should be able to afford $5. If you can't afford $5, then you're doing poor with your life, basically. Then she came back and apologized and said, "Well, that's not what I meant, and it wasn't right of me, and I was in." She basically did a fake ass, half ass apology. Basically, I forget her fucking
Hmm.
name. She's retarded. She's basically an entitled princess on her too. You got Alinity, you got all the rest of the motherfuckers on there that do stupid shit too. So it's like, you know,
It's crazy because I mean they they get a lot of money, but like what are they doing with it? Are they investing with it? Are they using it to travel or like better their life or what are they? How are they
the sad part about that is a
spending
lot
their
of them actually
money?
spend it as soon as they get it, basically. So it's one of those things where like they're literally out
And
of
then they
money.
complain
So
that they're poor.
they
They're like,
complain that
oh,
they're
I don't
poor.
have money.
Basically, they're complaining that they need money and shit like that because they spend it so fast. Because they know that the men would actually literally give them money all the damn time. So they spend it so fast and
Mhm.
they end up on another stream and they get more money and they spend that too. Then like they forget that they got bills that they need to pay and they spend then they eventually get more money so they pay their bills and shit like that and they spend that too and then it's like they back on stream again basically. That's typically how it works. It's a vicious cycle because they know the men would actually pay for the shit.
I mean, I think they know the men will pay for it, but they wouldn't know what to do with like that much capital if they got it, if they actually could like save it. Like I believe in the
They
Pareto
wouldn't even save it
distribution.
though. That's the problem. They basically go splurge and shit like that because they act like pampered princesses, basically.
Yeah, it was never their wealth to begin with, so it's just trading hands. Well, and I think that whoever's letting it happen is probably understands that at some point they're gonna be probably suing Twitch for like it ruining like they're gonna benefit from it in the moment, but then when they don't have anything to show for it, they're gonna be at Twitch's neck, no
Yeah,
doubt.
apparently, there's an insider at Twitch that basically says something to the extent of um that it don't be shocked if in the next few years if Twitch is being sued for sexual harassment or sexual misconduct or stuff along the lines of that, basically. So it's only a matter of time before somebody, they I guess they talk to the wrong person and they're all being sued and shit like that. Right now they're currently being sued by somebody for $25 million. Um, it's a guy though, so Lord knows how far that'll go. But it looks like he has a pretty solid case for the most part right now to actually win because apparently according to him now and according to his lawyer, he actually suffers from sex addiction and his psychologist. On top of that, he has Crohn's disease and he also has carpal tunnel syndrome now after watching Twitch, and he also so he has like a bevy of problems. So like it looks like a pretty strong case for the most part.
Now, who's gonna who is has to defend that against that? Is that gonna be one of Twitch's like lawyers
Yeah,
or
basically,
the
Twitch
Twitch's
got to
lawyers?
defend themselves against that. Basically,
Well, they call and like could they call Alinity or Pokimane to the stand as like
well,
as
the
a
sad part
witness?
about that, why would they call them to the stands when that's the main two targets of this lawsuit, basically.
No, I mean the prosecution, like when they want to get them to be or to speak.
For on behalf of Twitch and defend Twitch. No,
No,
because
no, no.
he basically said it's Pokimane and Alinity's fault that he actually is in this mess.
Oh, so he's suing Twitch. He's suing them through Twitch
No, he's suing Twitch basically because of them.
because of
Basically,
them.
his lawsuit is basically Twitch. Twitch doesn't give me anything else to watch because he has Crohn's disease and he barely goes anywhere. He only goes to his appointments and to go get his medical treatments, but everything else is delivered to his house during the corona lockdown. So he's basically one of them people that's pretty much a shut-in unless he has to go to his appointment. So from the sounds of it, it sounds like he has a very good case. Yeah, Alinity and Pokemon would get destroyed on cross examination.
That's what I was saying. Like it would be crazy to watch that, and then just being
Yeah, they
like
would get destroyed on cross
objection, leaving the
examination because the
witness,
sad part about those two,
objection,
despite the fact about
hearsay.
those two,
You
Alinity would
shook
try
your
to
ass on cam. Objection, hearsay, objection.
hearsay. You know how much evidence they got of that shit? You know how many nips and
Please
shit
play
that
the tape.
Alinity got?
Please
Alinity
play
does shit
Exhibit
every other Friday. So it's going to be
Mhm.
an up and check case, basically, when it comes
I
down to
know,
it. And the
yeah.
sad part about that, you got Pokimane basically doing stupid shit too. So it is what it is. then you got all the rest of the Twitch dots. So you got pretty much a lineup of, you got a bevy of proof basically. So it'll be on Twitch to basically disprove that the Twitch girls don't do what they claim. What the Twitch girl doesn't do. The Twitch women don't do what they claim they do basically. So it's the burden of evidence is on the burden of proof will be on Twitch basically.
Yeah.
Like one or two
Well, I
things
mean,
they'll end up doing. They'll
yeah.
either go all the way to court and end up losing, or they'll settle out of court for a lesser amount basically.
Well, there will always be some thoughts out there that no one knows why they're so famous or why they make so much money. I mean, you
Yeah.
heard Kim Kardashian, she's actually studying to be a lawyer now, right? She's studying law.
Oh wow, interesting.
Yeah. So it's like this it's interesting right now because the Twitch is like in the limelight.
Her dad was a lawyer too, though. So
Right,
I'm not
right.
shocked about it in the least bit.
It's the family practice. Yeah,
Yeah, basically. But the sad part
but
about that,
now our new
I highly
generation
doubt
will
she'll
be
probably
like,
get
yeah.
hired because Brie Olson is having a problem with getting hired.
Bree Olson. Oh, is she studying law too?
No, she's actually trying to go to school. She's actually trying to be a nurse,
Oh,
and nobody's trying to
wow.
hire her basically because of her porn history past, basically. And the sad part about that, a lot of women are finding out very quickly that you know that a lot of places don't want to be saddled with your past history basically, and basically she's trying to blame it on society for the most part. But the sad part about that is the hospital don't want to be known for hiring a porn star. Like the worst thing you can possibly do to be hired at a hospital is remember that reality show called um where they did with that one dude Bob or Evan or something like that, where he was like a real guy and he didn't know that he's basically the only person in the reality show and the rest of the people around her were actors and stuff like that, acting like
And
they were
what was the angle of the show? Because I think I
basically it
do
was almost
remember.
like the Truman Show. Basically, it was like a reality show, almost like the Truman Show, where like he was basically Truman, but he didn't know that everybody around him was actors and stuff like that, actors and actresses basically. But he was the only person that actually had the actual like non-scripts and actually responding to a lot of the shit naturally.
That would be so fucked up, dude.
Yeah, but like he found out
If
at the
all my
end that
friends were actors,
he found out at
oh
the
my
end that he was the
god,
only person on the reality show. He thought he was like on a reality show with a lot of other people. And like every time something would happen, it would like they would
it was only
basically like
about
blow
him.
his mind. But the sad part about
Yeah.
that, he actually worked at the hospital I used to work at. That guy that was on that show.
Hmm.
I forget his name,
Interesting.
but he worked at the hospital I was at. But like it was because it was so tame, he was able to pull that off. And the sad part about that is now if he was a porn star, he wouldn't be working at the hospital I worked at. Because the hospital doesn't want to be saddled with anything like that, basically, or any type of they don't want to be saddled with any type of risk assessment, basically. Because if he was a porn star,
And
they would not hire him for that fact because he has a
another
history.
funny double standard is like if a guy goes into a job and he doesn't really fit a good profile, and he's not married and he's like single, like they're more likely to question why he's single than they are to actually question like an older woman who's single.
Yeah,
Which is kind of like more of a red flag if you really think about it, because like an older guy who's single doesn't really he could have just like be starting over, but they're gonna
yeah,
hold the more scrutiny up to him. Whereas like if a woman's like just coming out of nowhere and she's single and stuff, they're more likely to let her in, which is like I
yeah.
think is a huge double
The
standard.
sad part about that though, like the irony to that though is like a lot of times being a single mother actually plays against a lot of women for the most part in jobs because the sad part about that, the job basically says this is the schedule that we have for you, and if you can't fit the schedule, then because there's a lot of women who will go in and be like, well, I know I applied for this job, but I would like to work this hours because I can't do these hours. Then why did you apply for this fucking job? There's a lot of women that's actually doing that shit right now, which is actually pretty funny. Like they'll say, "Well, I can only work mornings. I can't work evenings, or something like that, or I can't work mornings. I can only work evenings." And they're literally applying for the job that they're actually being offered, but they're trying, and that's the job that they're being hired for. But they're trying to change it up and say, "Well, I can't work evenings, or I can't do any weekends, or I can't do this," basically. And it's just simple shit like that, basically, that's ruined a lot of women's chances of actually, getting jobs. And the sad part about that is nobody's actually talking about this shit because I remember a woman that literally came in for an evening shift position, and she threw a fit and threw a temper tantrum to get a morning shift position. Now, mind you, there was a lot of women there and a lot of guys there that actually were on evening shift that should have been moving to morning shift because they deserved the position, but the supervisor eventually bent to her will and actually gave her the morning shift. The sad part about this bitch called off like every other weekend, every other day, literally. She would like call off like at least at least every other weekend, basically, she would call off,
Yeah,
literally. Or every other day, she would just
yeah,
call off if she had to work a weekend or she had to work like an evening. She would call off, basically. And the sad part about that,
yeah,
she was well past the fucking well past the reprimand period of that shit for the most part, which is sad.
yeah. Uh-huh. And then like at the same, yeah, you also have to take in like she can always say that she has like women's issue. She has like feminine body
No,
issues
because the
or
sad part
something like
about that,
that.
if that was the case, then all the other women can actually pull that off, and they don't. So that would make her look like a lying sack of shit, basically. So women couldn't do that shit. And like she couldn't even use the argument of I have children because all the rest of the women on staff has children. So there goes your logic and argument out the door too. And that's the type of shit that a lot of women are trying to pull it because they're literally trying to act like they're entitled to actually work a shift that they want to work and not work the shift that they don't want to work, even though they apply for the shift that they
But you
got
talk about
basically.
that a lot, like what like certain women like realize or like want, they try to force it and it never fits with their
Yeah,
life, like right with their life.
yeah,
And
because
I noticed that a lot because it's like they'll rather work a job and like be lazy at the job than actually work at a job and then
and
complain
actually do
that
some
they like
actual
can
work.
hardly live. And then instead of like finding something that they actually enjoy doing and doing it more and kind of letting their life morph around that, like in an environment where they thrive, it might not be the most glamorous of professions, but it might be
Hmm.
to them. And I was watching Austria Dick was doing another, he likes to do videos about brothels and stuff. And I think it's like fascinating because from being in my situation, I've never been to like a brothel or strip club or any of that kind of stuff. So it's interesting to see how he interprets all of it and how like certain like he went to this one, or he had this one documentary where they went into a brothel in the UK, and like these female journalists were trying to talk to the women in the brothel and like try to like somehow convince them or coerce them into making it seem like oppressive or making it seem more abusive and stuff. And like the women in the brothel were like, hey, this is an honest work that I do. I don't get I don't like I don't want to have to work like a normal 9 to 5 job where I'm not able to do, or where I have to struggle to live, and this way I can like kind of maintain my dignity and work in a way that suits me. And it's just like a lot of the journalists, like the feminist journalists, were like appalled.
Yeah,
Meanwhile, they have to like clock into a job where it's high stress. It's almost like a call center job, but like the journalism jobs, like high stress, it's
hmm.
high demand. You asked to think very think think on a high level at all times, and it's just
Sad part
not.
about that,
I
they
don't
don't even have to
know.
think anymore. They basically just have to read a teleprompter or read a script basically and ask the questions on the script for the most part. So it's not even like really investigative
Mhm.
journalists anymore. Because the sad part about if it's feminist, they basically go off of a certain agenda any damn way and ask certain questions to try to make them painted in a light that's make it sound like it's worse than what it really is. And the sad part about that, they're finding out very quickly that there's a lot of women that's not rolling with their agenda because the sad part about feminism is only all of what like all of what like 2% of the population, 3% of the population, LGBTQ, the whole entire LGBTQ thing holds up what like 5% of the population. So it's in all technicality, there's more LGBTQ than there is actual feminist. You see what I'm saying?
I see. Yeah, I think you're right, because that's true. That's totally true.
Because the sad part about that is you also got to take consideration too. Like everybody that's a part of the LGBTQ is basically like you got lesbian, trans, queer, gay, I forget what all the other fucking acronyms are basically in there, but basically all those people are under one umbrella with that. The sad part about that, apparently the gay people aren't okay with half the shit that's going on, and the people that dress in drag aren't okay with half the shit that's going on basically. Because the sad part about that, the LGBTQ is actually being ran by women, and the gay people aren't too fond of with the agenda that they're trying to push, and the drag queens aren't too fond of the shit that they're trying to push either. So all this, gay drag stuff, or this stuff where they're trying to force people to do to like drag queen stuff, or to be accepting of gay people, they're not okay with this. So it's only a matter of time before that movement breaks up. Because the sad part about that is without the gay people and the drag queens, that movement ain't gonna be shit no more, because it's just gonna be a bunch of crying ass women basically. For the most part.
like how style kind of plays into presentation.
Mm-hmm.
That I think that like when you reject when like certain of these feminist women, they don't have like a cultural background that makes them unique. They also kind of fail in that department where they don't recognize who actually has value in their organization, and that's how they
Mm-hmm.
start to step on each other's toes. And then it's like if they don't have any, they don't bring anything to the table. They at least bring a mind, like a marketing mind. They'd be like, all right, who can we pick? And that's actually something I thought that they used to do really well.
Well, the sad part about
And
that is
then
that it's not the fact that they do it very well. They're basically the lesbians are being propped up on the strength of gay men, basically. Because the sad part about that, at the end of the day, don't nobody really give a damn about a lesbian, but everybody think gay people are cool for the most part. Once you actually boil it down and actually, get everybody's thoughts and just on the shit. Because at the end of the day, gays and lesbians really don't get along. And the sad part about that is more people actually like gay men than they actually do like lesbian women for the most part. It's just what it is. If you take a poll, an average poll of all the people, more people are going to be leaning more towards the gay men than they are going to be leaning towards than they are going to be leaning towards lesbian women for the most part once you take a poll. Because a good example of that, what's up, Happy Life? Um, the good example of that is like the gay pride parade basically. Now, what a lot of people don't know is that there's a lot of people. There was a gay pride parade one weekend, and a lesbian pride parade was the following weekend. Basically, the thing about that is everybody showed up to the gay pride parade, but hardly anybody showed up to the lesbian pride parade. Like, let that sink in. Most people showed up to the gay pride parade, but hardly anybody to nobody showed up at the lesbian pride parade. So what
well, I mean,
happened?
is there?
So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that
so
that
what
that
happened
that's what I'm
was
saying.
the lesbians eventually moved the lesbian pride parade to Sunday on the same weekend as the gay pride parade, just so they can get some of that crowd, basically, because ain't nobody there for them. Don't nobody really care about them, basically. Everybody kills the sad part about that. Society cares more about gay men than they do about lesbian women, for the fact that they were willing to accept gay men, but the lesbian woman thing doesn't really jive with them. And the sad part about that is what a lot of people see. A lot people view gay men differently than they view lesbian women for the most part, and here's why. Because if you actually meet a gay couple, and you actually meet a lesbian couple, or if you ever meet a lesbian, and you meet a gay guy, basically, you're more likely to actually want to talk and engage with the gay guy than you are with the lesbian woman. For two reasons. One, lesbian women have bad attitudes. It's just facts. Most lesbian women, I would say about 80 to 90% of lesbian women have bad attitudes for the most part.
Yeah, I
And the
mean,
sad part
from my
about that,
experience, it's when they're with their partner, there's a lot of gate guarding, and when they're
they
not,
have this better than now attitude towards people, and this is why a
Mhm.
lot of people actually don't like them or not want to engage them or don't really care about them for the most part. But the sad
because
part about it, if
dating
you meet a
is
gay guy,
yeah.
he's like the coolest. Like they're like the coolest group of people you'll ever meet. Basically, like you can literally go party with them and be perfectly fine. And that's the thing. Like it's all about how you present yourself and how you carry yourself for the most part. You're more likely to hang with a gay guy than you are to hang with a lesbian woman because she just got a bad fucking attitude. It's just facts. Whereas a gay guy always has a positive attitude no matter what the fuck is going on. Hell, you could tell there could literally be a story that gay guys are being hunted down. Hopefully that never happens, but so I don't want this the stream to get struck or anything like that. But there could literally be a story about that, and gay men would literally be like still happy and pretty jovial about the shit basically, and say, well, on the bright side, well, at least this isn't happening. Well, at least I'm still alive. They always look at the bright side for the most part, whereas lesbians are always looking at the bad side or the dreary side. Basically, it's basically night and day between lesbians and gay people for the most part, if you know what I mean.
Totally.
It's
I mean,
like night and fucking
the
day.
attitude thing. Attitude is like a major part of any sort of like relationship or any sort of interaction.
And that's
because
the sad part about
you could be not
another good example of people who are more popular than fucking lesbians are drag queens. Drag queens are more popular than lesbians because the sad part about drag queens is drag queens basically have that customer service vibe about them for the most part. Like they work in customer service all their lives for the most part, and they're very inviting and they're very out there with their personality, and they're very very happy, and they basically they present themselves in a better light than lesbians do for the most part. And this is why a lot of people are more accepting of drag queens than they are of lesbians, because lesbians just have a poor attitude. They carry themselves poor, they act poorly towards other people, and they have this better than now attitude towards shit, if you know what I mean. On average, for the most part, for the large majority of them just have this better than now attitude towards people, and this is why they can't get nowhere, and this is why nobody really likes them. This is why nobody wants to show up at their parades. This is why pretty much nobody really wants to listen to anything they got to say, because they just have a fucking attitude all the damn time. And the sad part about that is what a lot of people don't realize is anytime something comes up where somebody says, I don't like something, or I'm okay, I'll pass on that, basically, the people calling the people the names the most are the lesbians and women. Oh, well, you're homophobic if you're not going to show up at a gay pride parade. No, dude. Like, no, I'm good. Like, I got work that weekend. I'm not a homophobe. Actually, they could do what they want to do as long as I don't really care what they do for the most part. And that's pretty much the general consensus of a lot of people when it comes to gay guys. Like, okay, that's nice. Do what you want to do, but like, long as you ain't, as long as you ain't like, trying to drag me into your bedroom, or you're trying to actually change my bedroom thing, or you're not trying to do anything stupid with me, that's perfectly fine. And that's typically how people think when it comes to gay guys, because gay guys really don't try to force shit down your throat for the most part, whereas lesbians and women will force shit down your fucking throat. It's like there's a difference between accepting something and actually being forced to actually accept something, but forced to actually like something for the most part. The thing about acceptance is everybody has their option if they want to accept something or not. Basically, it's their option. It's their preferences. It's basically how they grew up. They're allowed to say, I don't accept this, or they're allowed to say, I do accept this, or they're allowed to put stipulations on what they're allowed to accept. Basically, it's just facts. But lesbians don't see it that way, and women don't see it that way. So they'll basically call you homophobic, or they'll call you transphobic, or they'll call you drag queen phobic, or they'll say you're lesbian phobic, or some stupid shit like that, basically. And that's typically how that works.
I've been called like transphobic and stuff, because I wouldn't consider that.
But the sad part about that, now think about that though. You've been called transphobic, but was it a trans person that actually called you transphobic?
No.
Who was it that actually called you transphobic?
It was like a white straight female.
There you go. That's why nobody likes them.
Even her demeanor was more like
hostile,
tomboyish.
Her demeanor was very hostile towards you, basically. Yeah, that's why nobody likes women. That's why nobody likes the feminist movement, because they don't know how to act, and in order to know how to present themselves in a popular light. That's the sad part about that. Like a good example that, like I said, the difference between how a trans person acts and how a gay person acts, a trans person and a gay person acts, versus how a lesbian or a woman acts, is night and fucking day. Like, you're more likely to accept a speech from a gay person or a trans person than you are from a woman. It's just facts. It's not because they're women. It's not because they're trans person, transitioning into something else. It's just the fact that how they carry themselves and how they present themselves to people. You don't have to accept shit, but if a person comes at you and has good customer service, has good communication skills, and lets you actually think like you want to think, basically, you tend to going to want to gravitate towards that person and want to listen to that person, because they're actually giving you an option to actually, to do what you want to do with this situation. Whereas lesbians and women, they don't give you an option. They force shit down your fucking throat. You see what I'm saying? This is why nobody likes the women of the day, and this is why nobody likes lesbians, because women in or pretty much women in or lesbian, straight or gay, straight or lesbian, they basically like pushing shit down people's throats. That you have to accept something when they're there. Whereas if a gay guy or a trans person comes up to you, or a drag queen comes up to you, you don't have to accept it, but I just want to educate you. That's it. And the sad part about that, that's how they approach you. And the sad part about that, you may not accept it, but you respect the person for not forcing it down your fucking throat. You see what I'm saying? That's the total difference between lesbians and gay men, and lesbians and trans people, and lesbians and drag queens. It's all about how they present it, and it's their presentation when they talk to you, for the most part, that you're willing to accept talking to them. Whereas if you're talking to a feminist or a lesbian or a woman, it's like, well, you got to accept this, well, you got to do this, or you got to do that, or you got to do that. I ain't got to do shit but be black and die, motherfucker. Like, that's exactly how I feel about that shit. I ain't got to do shit but be a nigga and die. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
But
and the sad part
anything
about
that
that, women
you,
can't accept
yeah.
that type of shit because they're so used to getting their way. When they run into somebody like me or you or, several other people, it's like, you can't say that, or you got to accept this, or no, I don't. And then you basically turn to the resident gay person, or resident trans person, or the resident drag person, and they go, he doesn't have to accept it. It's his choice. It's called a choice. He can pretty much accept how much of it he wants to. That's the point of this whole entire thing. You're not supposed to show. And the sad part about that is, if you talk to all these people, like all this shit that's going on with the drag reading from the library to like the drag queens at that assembly at schools, all the drag queens are actually literally against this shit. You see what I'm saying? Like, all the
Yeah.
drag
Yeah. No,
queens
no,
are against this shit
for
that's
sure.
happening with the whole entire thing. It's like, that's something that you shouldn't be doing for children. I'm sorry. And gay men literally say the same damn thing. But the sad part about that is, it's not the men who bring their children to this gay pride parade. It's the women who bring their children to this gay pride parade. You see what I'm saying? But gay people would tell you that, no, I don't want them there. This is not for gay. This is not for children, basically. And they'll basically tell
Well,
you that.
another, yeah.
But the sad part
I
about
just,
that,
yeah.
women will literally drag their children there like it's an actual fucking Macy's Day Easter parade, or a Macy's Day Thanksgiving parade, or a Macy's Day fucking Christmas parade. And it's not that. That's the problem with women. And that's what women don't seem to understand, but they don't want to accept that. And they always want to act stupid, basically. And this is why nobody likes them. This is why nobody want to listen to them. And this is not why nobody respects them, because they do stupid shit like this all the time.
Mhm. And they just hope, no, they hope that they don't get caught. And
Well, no,
then
it's not that. It's not the fact that they hope they don't get caught, but because they believe that they're women. They believe that they should be able to exert anything that they personally view or believe over you, basically. And the sad part about that is, if you don't accept it, then they have to cancel you. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to cancel culture, it's nothing but women that's actually pushing these narratives and trying to get people fucking fired, or getting people like deplatformed, or getting people like in
I
trouble,
think
basically.
Duzangs once said it's like curious minds, but it really is just female minds, because like
No, it's
if a
basically
guy's
not
feel,
curious minds. Because the sad part about that, if it ain't the feminist or a woman doing the shit, it's one of their goofy ass men, male SJWs doing the shit. Mangina's basically doing the shit. It is what it is.
and I
And
didn't
that's
know,
typically
I
how it
don't,
works.
yeah,
But
they are
yeah,
more active. Like Manginas are more active, but like the thing that occurs to me often is that it's more like when you're a man, like your youth is the most valuable thing. It should be seen as the most valuable thing to you, and when you're surrounded by like this, like these feminists and like the left and stuff, it's always like your knowledge that they try to infiltrate, and they try to like gaslight you about. And it's like, so it's like, it's if you understand something on a deeper spiritual level, they'll try to tell you that you missed the part of the story where the woman was being oppressed, or you missed the part of the story where the guy was being abusive or oppressive or something like that. And it's like they're trying to distract from the fact that they don't actually understand whatever it is on a deeper level. They just want to like deflect their lack of understanding onto somebody else. And typically it's the most confident person in the room, or the person that like embodies the embodies confidence the most, because it's like, and then they try to say like, I'm happy, I'm super confident, I'm living my truth, but at the end of the day, you're available. Like your emotional status is always available because it's based on because it's like your identity is based on who you're dating and why that's important to you in the moment. When you look back, you're probably not going to end up being with that person for the long term,
Yeah.
and things are going to change, and then you're going to have to deal with you're going to have to develop your convictions like on the spot because you haven't been thinking about it your entire like as you've been growing up. You've just been letting other people take the blame for stuff instead of actually thinking about it,
And the sad part
thinking
about
through
that
it
is like that's
logically.
the argument they try to use for a lot of people when they say, "Well, you've been indoctrinated." Well, no, actually, you've been indoctrinated. Because at the end of the day, the most I've been indoctrinated with is the most that most men in the United States have been indoctrinated with, and women been indoctrinated with is this Disney princess bullshit, basically. And the sad part
Yeah,
about that is even these feminists
white
actually
privilege.
run off this thing where, like, they. And the sad part about that, as much as they re against shit, and as much as they
Some
say stupid shit,
yeah.
they basically still want to be treated like a princess at the end of the fucking
Something
day.
my dad was telling me is like back when he was growing up, him and his buddies, like white women just were not did not do it for them. Like their noses were off, their butt went up to their back, they had no boobs, they were kind of like lopsided, this like kind of and like he
They
was the way
basically
he
look
was
like
describing
boards,
it. Me,
basically. They look like two by
yeah,
fours, basically.
he was
Yeah.
like they were not good looking to us black men back when he was growing up, and then he was because I was telling him how I was attracted to them. He's like, yeah, you that's pretty much that it was indoctrinated into you, like,
Yeah,
and
it
then like
basically
the
is
way that
indoctrinated for
everything
you to
was
like
set
them for
up.
the most part. It's facts. Because the sad part about
Yeah,
that is, at the end of the day, a lot of the black men back in the day didn't really date white women or didn't really have a thing for white women. The sad part about that is, over the many years, because of the many different types of indoctrination that they over underwent, basically, like, especially with the ones where, like, they'll say, like, we need to pass this law because black men will get high or drunk or you know, be under the influence and rape your white women, basically. So they basically painted white women as the pinnacle of what you could possibly do in this fucking world. So the sad part about that is now everybody in this world is indoctrinated to love white women or cater to white women or or is just blessed to be ingratiated with white women when in fact they really ain't shit for the most part. They really ain't
and
shit in the least bit.
if you're lucky enough not to, then your male space might be invaded by one
A
of
white woman. That's always
by
going
yeah
to.
by
That's the
a
sad
guy,
part.
like a
Like,
guy just
if
brings a white woman in
anytime a
there.
male space is invaded, it's always going to be a white woman. Because the sad part about that, what I noticed about barbershops, even at barbershops, if there's even if it's like a boy girl barbershop, basically, the sad part about that is the black women would literally sit in there and listen to both conversations and be perfectly fine and not be fucking offended. White women, on the other hand, oh, I can't believe you said this about women. I can't believe you did this. I can't believe you said this. I can't believe this. Yeah, white women are going to more likely be up in arms or in a barbershop than a black woman is about anything they talk about. Like, you could talk about slapping a woman's ass basically in front of a black woman. She'll just giggle and laugh basically, especially if she has a fat ass herself. That's typically how that works. But the sad part about that, a white woman, you
Yeah.
can't say anything like that to around a white woman because she's going to be up in arms and be ready to go basically.
And the Princess Diaries, like the whole, you have to save your sex for a guy that's willing to spend everything and give you everything just to get access to it. And then they end up unhappy in those relationships most of the time because there are actually guys out there that are like, my ideal woman is like a white MILF that I give that I because like I make super rich. I can spend any amount of money on her to keep her around. And I was just like, wouldn't you get bored of that at some point? Like, wouldn't you want more than that than to just be with you, even though you have all the money? And that
Yeah.
kind of like set me down the path of like taking the red pill and stuff because I was like, no, that doesn't seem like a good conclusion because like as soon as you become ensconced in that fantasy, it's just a short term gratification because of how she looks now. Because looking from behind, like a lot of these white women look like black women, or a lot of these women got hips and stuff, and then all of a sudden, years down the line, she does not look like the same way that she did.
Facts.
She does not. She's cut her hair short. She stopped going to the gym. She stopped doing this and that. And one thing that occurred to me is that like a lot of Asian men fall under the radar when it comes to this kind of
Yeah,
indoctrination stuff
yeah. And
because
the sad part about that,
yeah,
they don't fall under the radar. They're basically just they're basically not really seen, or they're basically like just they basically just float by for the most part. And no, Red Pill Dusty, I'm not capping because white women do that shit in barbershops, but black women are more acceptable, more accepting of actual shit being said about women in barbershops than white women are. It's just facts. Because I go to multiple barbershops in multiple cities, from Costa Rica to Jamaica to Tampa to fucking Toronto to Pittsburgh to fucking Cleveland to fucking California to fucking India to fucking Albania basically. And the sad part about in Russia also. And the sad part about that is if anybody's going to be offended, it's going to be a white woman. Black women, a majority of black women for the most part black women on average are basically okay with locker room talk or barbershop talk for the most part because they basically know what goes on. And 9 times out of 10, if it's barbershop talk, 9 times out of 10 it probably benefits them, or how they look for the most part is typically how that works. And the sad part about that, you can't really disrespect. You can't really. There's not. It's very hard to
well,
disrespect
it's
the black woman
dichotomous.
outside of
Like
calling her the
when
B word for the most part.
yeah,
And that's
when women
typically how
see
that
men
works.
talking in a large group environment, when they get in together with it, when they start talking amongst themselves, it's not productive conversation. It's just stalling until one of the men does
No,
something.
see, no, see, that's the thing. We're not talking about red pill knowledge. We're talking about locker room talk or barbershop talk. That we're not talking about red pill shit. Because the sad part about
No,
that,
no, they
yeah,
won't
and the
get
sad
like
part about that, you're
the
you're thinking of
shaming.
red pill
Yeah,
knowledge basically. That's something different than locker room talk for the most part. Because the sad part about that, black women are more likely to sit there and accept it and smile, whereas white women are going to get up and be offended by the shit for somebody else basically. Because that's typically how white women act. They're always trying to act offended for somebody else. A good example of that is
yeah. They
remember the
never
Duck
actually defend
Dynasty
themselves.
thing
Yeah.
where Phil said, and I quote, he basically said, basically quoted the Bible when it came to gay people. Then he said, and I quote, when I was young and I was working in the fields, it didn't seem to me that the black people were unhappy for the most part. They were always singing. And white women took that as he hates black women. He hates black people for the most part. And the sad part about that, they were trying to get black people to be upset with Duck Dynasty. The sad part about that, black people still watch Duck Dynasty because he said, and we quote, when I was a kid, it didn't seem as though that to me that black people were upset or or sad or upset about their working conditions to him as a kid. Basically, that's literally what he said. But they made it. They try to spin it to the point where they made it so that he hates black people. And the sad part about that, it wasn't black women that were actually complaining about it. It was white women that were actually complaining about this shit. And it was lesbians actually complaining about this shit. And it was basically just white women in general from both sides of the spectrum complaining about this shit. You ain't hear a near black woman complain about the fact that he was racist. It was all white women that said he was racist against black people. It's just facts. So for you to say black women are not okay with it, it's totally false for the fact that no black woman was actually against Phil Robinson from Duck Dynasty. It was a bunch of white women that were against Phil Robinson from Duck Dynasty. It's just facts. Because the sad part about that, I've been in way too many barbershops to actually know from many different women from many different walks of life. If a white woman walks in a barbershop, she's going to be more offended than anybody else in a fucking barbershop. It's just facts. So for you to say that, no, black women on average really don't give a damn about the shit that's being said in the barbershop and are more likely to engage in the shit in the barbershop and are more likely to participate and start ripping on motherfuckers if motherfuckers is ripping on people in the barbershop. It's just facts.
And another observation, Red Dusty, is like the the closer you get to the actual like liberal white woman, the further away you get from that basic bitch like mentality. Because the basic bitch, like she could be feminist, it's not even that big. It's not that bothersome of a thing. It's
No,
like
see, the
she
black
doesn't
women
really
don't
care
trip
about.
on locker room talk. White women trip on locker room talk. You're getting your people mixed up. Black women don't trip on locker room talk because I've heard black women are more likely to engage in locker room talk than white women are, on average. It's just facts. You might run into a small minority or what they refer to as the and the sad part about that is what they refer to that as, that's a outlier basically when you see a black woman actually complain about it, because I've been to
Yeah, it's
many
definitely
barbershop where
not
there's black
normal.
women, a bunch of black women working, and like you'll hear the men talk about like smacking something or smashing a girl while he was on a trip, and this, that, and the other, and this girl had a fat ass, and this, that, and the other, and the black women are sitting there laughing because
Hmm.
most of the times most of the black women have fat asses, so they can actually feel that as a compliment for the most part. If they don't have a flat ass and they flat as a fucking board, then you're going to be offended by that because you feel as though that you should be accepted just like the fat ass women are accepted. Basically, it's just typically how it works. On average, that's typically how it works. Women are
Hmm.
Black women are more accepting if you talk about you dated a woman with a fat ass, and a black women have fat asses that you would slap too. I mean, come on now,
Yeah.
that's a compliment to black women. I mean, now if you say if he was to say, here goes another, here's where the shit gets hanky with black women. Now if he was to say you was messing with a white chick while you was somewhere,
Yeah.
then black
Yeah.
women will fuck some shit up
Yeah.
basically
Well,
and
then
talk shit on you.
it's
It's
because
just
she doesn't
facts.
she can't be like those black women can't be a basic bitch because they're more they could there's more of a possibility they could get that domestic goddess role. But since that black man is attracted to the more basic bitch kind of archetype, she's gonna get offended.
Well, no, I know. Like some people, sometimes locker room talk stops because everybody doesn't want to be sued in lately in this day and age. Basically, that's the reason why. That's the reason why locker room talk stops because nobody wants to be sued.
Oh, it stops. Oh, it
Yeah,
stops.
and the
Trust
sad
me.
part
I've
about that,
had
if you
this.
go to the
Yeah.
right barbershops, locker room talk don't stop, and it continues basically when women walk in. Unless a white woman walks in, then it stops. But if black women are there, it continues. If children are there, then it'll stop. You see what I'm saying? At your typical hood barbershops, basically, black women are fine with it. But if a white woman walks in, it stops. If children are there, they don't even talk about the shit no more, basically, because they respect children and shit like that for the most part. But at the end of the day, like a good example of that is if somebody's at the barbershop and people start cussing and shit like that, the barber's basically gonna tell y'all to chill out, basically, because we got young ears here, virgin ears here, and I'm gonna need y'all to knock it off with that stuff, basically. It's just facts. But if a white woman walks in a barbershop, everything inappropriate stops because that's pretty much Karen that walked in a barbershop, and she's probably going to try to get everybody arrested or fired, or you know get everybody's business licenses pulled for the most part, and that's typically how that works. But at the end of the day, if a black woman's sitting in there, they're perfectly fine with it. Hell, I've seen black women with their children in there talking locker room talk with the boys in there. But
Yeah.
but the only locker room talk you can't talk about with black women is if you're talking about you dating a white woman. Oh, that's your ass. That is your ass. That is your ass. You talk about you're dating a white woman. Let a black woman find out you're dating a white woman. In a black barbershop, it's a wrap for you. It's a fucking wrap for you. And it is what it is, and that's typically how that works.
And
Because
another locker room also stops when some liberal men walk in because they like you don't even really want to talk to them. Like it's just
well,
like
no,
it
because
just gets
the
to be.
sad part about that, locker room talk only stops for men when they start actually acting like a bunch of like when they start acting like a beta bitch. Basically, that's when
Yeah.
locker room talk stops for men when they start acting like a
But
beta
they're like
bitch.
beta alpha because they gotta project. They always gotta yell over everybody
Well, no,
else,
you're
and
not
then
a you're not an alpha at that point because at the end of the day, you're basically trying to cape for women, so you're not an alpha. You're just a
yeah.
beta,
Or like
basically.
if the locker room talk is kind of like would be more like classified to a beta as like something to get angry at and to vent frustration at, and then that's when you would see them kind of get offended, and then people will start to go off into their own little side conversations, and it would fizzle out.
Yeah, because the funny thing about that is like even in India when I've been to barbershops and like locker room talk is going on, the men just talk freely for the most part, and the women just sit there and they just smile and they're more demure and they smile basically when I'm in a barbershop chair basically, and the women just smile because you're talking about women basically, and usually the women that you're talking about is the local women basically, and they tend to feel like they're pretty for the most part when it comes down to it. But white women on the other hand, oh, you can't do that around white women at all. Locker room talk is stopped. Like I've matter of fact, I've seen dudes who date, I've seen black dudes that date white women that bring them in a barbershop. As soon as he walks in there, we all talking shit. The minute she walks in there, everything fucking stops.
Yeah, and I think it's because they've been like you can talk about all the stuff men have been indoctrinated, but like white women have been indoctrinated to value low value men in this
Well, no,
society, I
but
think.
no. See, the sad part about that is white women been indoctrinated to the point to think that they're actually the peak of the pet. They're pretty much the cream of the crop when in fact they're not. That's the problem with white women. They think they're like the top of the top of the top of the top, basically, and that's the problem with white women. That's why nobody really. That's why a lot of the white men are dating like got Asian fever, or they got Latin fever, or they got jungle fever because or Arab. Like a lot of white men are dating Arab women too, and that's the sad part about it. Like it is what it is. Like why would you want to put up with somebody that acts like a fucking princess all the fucking time when you get somebody that will slowly transition into a princess? You bring her back to the United States, and the sad part about that, a lot of white men who actually date outside their race, they're smart enough not to bring bitches back to the United States unless they're visiting family, and that's it. And they go back to where they were basically. That's typically how that works. But majority of black men who actually date outside their race, if they're dating somebody who lives in another country, they keep that heifer in their country. It's a small minority of men who actually bring women back to the fucking states, basically. But white men on average who date outside their race are smart enough to actually keep a woman outside the country. Whereas like a good, I mean, don't get me wrong, like I would say about I would say about 45%, 35% of white men who date outside their race keep the women in their fucking country. The rest of the men, the rest of this percentage, they'll bring it back to the country to basically try to stunt and try to make it sound like they're all that in a bag of chips, and then they end up divorced, or then a woman end up with citizenship and half their shit. Basically, that's typically how that works. Very rarely do you actually see a woman from another country still in a relationship with a white man, basically after a certain amount of time, for the most part, and it's just facts. So at the end of the day, I mean, it's few and far between to see a woman from another country still in a relationship with a white man. Basically, it is what it is. And the sad part about that is, it's pretty much it's pretty much what it is for the most part when it comes to that. I don't know.
Well, you have a lot of pressure from I think it's like it's funny because they don't really have a lot of money invested in the game like as it is. They're
Yeah,
really
they don't.
much waiting for
It's
somebody else
basically
to make a
like
move.
white women are basically the people. White women are basically the people who have no skin in the game, but act like they have skin in the game, and they virtue signal to act like they got skin in the game when they really don't have any skin in the
Dude,
game at all.
what Dusty said, like the way that they bring women into a male space for validation, beta men do.
Yeah, they
I
do.
I I feel inclined
They
to
basically bring women into a male space. Basically, like there's one or two. There's only like one real reason to bring a woman into a male space. If that's your fucking ride here, if that's your fucking ride
if
here,
she's
you ain't got
if
no
she's
other
holding you
ride home.
down like that.
Basically, and
Yeah.
if she doesn't need to be there and she could be elsewhere and she could be doing other shit, then she could be other doing other shit for the most part. But if she's your ride and she ain't got nothing to do, then we kind of got to accept it. But the sad part about that is a lot of these white women, they basically come into the barbershop to basically show off for other men in the barbershop, basically. That's all it really is. White women basically come in a barbershop, a black barbershop, to basically show to get attention from other men in the barbershop. Whereas black women come in there, they're either coming in for their kids, they ain't in the mood to be bothered. It's just shit like that. Basically, they already come in with attitude because they ain't got this time to be here. And 9 times out of 10, their kids done made them late for their fucking appointment, or their kids done did some shit on the way to the barbershop. So they ain't about fucking with anybody, and they ain't about that. They ain't about that shit basically, and they just wanted to be in and out for the most part. Whereas white women that come with dudes, they literally come in to parade themselves around for a validation and attention. That's typically how that work in a black barbershop. Most of the black women that come in, they ain't got time for this shit. They probably bring in their kids, or they probably with their man, and they always look like they got a permanent scowl on their fucking face, and they just basically want out of there, basically. Whereas the white
Yeah.
women that come in, they'll be sitting there smiling at everybody, waving at everybody, cheesing at every fucking body and shit like that. They be motherfucking white lady friendly, basically, in a black barbershop for the most part, because they be literally flirting with every damn body.
I just keep thinking about that one scene from Barbershop where the white guy pulls up and then he's got like a light skinned girl and they start making out outside the barbershop.
Yeah,
He's wearing the tracksuit, like the blue suede tracksuit. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
looking like a Russian or a fucking an Albanian, basically.
And yeah,
Eastern
yeah, an
European,
Albanian
just
guy.
like an Eastern European in a tracksuit. Yeah, but yeah, that's
They're
typically how
like
that
they're pretty
works.
the gang. Their gangsterness is definitely on par with, or their gangster presentations kind of on par with like
Yeah,
some of
and
the American
they're always
gangsters.
squatting too in a lot of their pictures. You ever notice? They're always in that squat, basically, too.
Yo, you know what? Asian dudes squat in photos all the time. Like I think it's like to offset the height thing. You know, like I find myself doing it sometimes too. You know, it's like
Well, if you wear
you
stripes
get
up and
get
down,
down low.
it makes you look taller, basically. Like anything with
Mm-hmm.
stripes
Mm-hmm.
in it, up in like vertical stripes in it, it makes you look taller. If you wear horizontal stripes, it makes you look bigger.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's typically how that works.
Yeah, and it's very interesting to see when like you when a man's out walking in public and like you can tell that he dresses almost like his mom's still dressing him, like dressing to be all like to be all like you know suave and like attract the attention of older women. It's kind of like there's like a way of dressing professionally, and then there's a way of
Mm-hmm.
dressing just like super flashy. And another thing, like too, there's like the whole professionalism thing that Dusty was mentioning. I think that that's like it's slowly coming to an end because we're seeing because like I don't know the more the way that the more evident that the double standards become, it's almost as if that the professionalism just goes out the door whenever a person of higher stat like social class walks in. They can basically say whatever they want, and then it's taken at face value. For example, cancel culture is a good example of professionalism being like weeded out of the common the common person, the common sense, because it doesn't make sense to denounce somebody on a social media platform as useless as
But to
that as
women,
Twitter.
it does make sense because they got a lot of
But to
followers, and a lot of people that's
exactly.
following them are willing to do stupid shit for the most part. And that's typically how that works. That's why you're getting tried by the court of public opinion. Matter of fact, I got a video that actually talks about the court of public opinion in history that's coming out at 10 o'clock tomorrow. It's like an hour and 28 minutes long. And it's not going to be for everybody, but it basically touches on the court of public opinion back in the days in the United States during like the 1700s, 1800s, and 1900s, basically how the court of public opinion basically tried a lot of people and how it existed even back then for the most part. And it's actually a subscriber request, so it doesn't really fit the milieu of my channel, but because a lot of people requested it, I'm basically doing it for that reason. Plus, I'm debunking somebody says something about a certain president. Basically, so I'm actually debunking that quote in that one too. That he actually didn't say the shit that they claim he said. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah.
shit that's going to be in that video. It's about an hour and 28 minutes, and like it was the people who actually requested it was Double I, uh, Brandon horror story, Brandon Captain Brandon horror story guy, um, tracks mixes tracks. The one that always hangs with AJ. Freaky Jersey Tales mentioned something to me in passing, so I'm doing it because of Freaky Jersey Tales too. Um, Psyche Soap mentioned something to me. Janky was another person that kind of sort of requested it. Penny Proud basically kind of sort of requested it indirectly to me, but she requested it from somebody else. So she's actually in that list of people who actually is a subscriber request. Then you also got you got like there's like I think like 13 people who are actually under the subscriber request for that video basically. And the sad part about that is that there's another 20 something people who actually who inspired it for the most part. So like True Sherm inspired it, Mr. Forma inspired it, uh, Lion of MGTOW inspired it. It's inspired by Hammerhand also. It's also inspired by Mad Bus Driver, um,
Hmm.
Various Men in the Manosphere, The Amazing Lucas, Abba and Preach, um, Sydney Watson, um, Bridges Don't Fly. I already said Double I.
Nice.
Basically, there's just
Bridges
a
don't
bunch of
fly.
different people in there that
Psyche. So
that actually give. that I basically say inspired. It's inspired by basically. So there's a list of
Mhm.
people in there that is actually inspired this video to come out tomorrow for the most part. It's not going to be for everybody, so you don't have to watch it. But there'll be another video that come out alongside of it that'll basically be not that for the most part. And it's coming out at about 10. So like I'll probably put out a video before the video after for the most part
Well,
to
I like
basically,
those ones because it's good. They're good to listen to like whenever I'm just doing something or working, because it's just like just like the free flow, just voice content and stuff, just
yeah,
like just delivering the gospel. And that's something that's like the parable of the gospel, something that's important because it's like it's you don't pick up all the information from it right away. Not to compare your no, not to compare like the Tico Trend Live to the gospel because it is the gospel. Well, like not to
mm,
not you don't pick all this stuff up right away. It's like either on like the third or fourth playthrough, or a couple days after you listen to it, things start to make sense. I wanted to bring the brothers to here tonight, just because that's it's important that we all come together and are still talking. Mr. Elite had one of his last videos that he posted this week, and it's just like you can see on YouTube that there's just people starting to dwindle, and so it's always important to be vigilant in the times like these.
yeah,
And
definitely, I agree
I'll always
100%.
be going to Tico's channel, always be going to True Sherm's channel, always be going to like these people that put out content on a regular basis because they're one of the last like meeting places we have left.
Yeah,
Um, but it's good to see Dusty was in here and Happy Life, and I mean everyone. If you guys have the chance, leave a like on your way out if you haven't already liked it, and then share as many of these videos as you can because this is like how we're going to spread the message and how we're going to stay united.
yeah, definitely.
But yeah, man, that's basically all. I didn't really have anything else to add to that, and so if you wanted to, we could. I think we could call this an end. It's been pretty long.
Oh, it's a Gundam also actually. It was inspired by It's a Gundam in one of his videos, basically too. Hammerhand, It's a Gundam, True Sherm, Mr. Forma, Psyche Soap, Bridges Don't Fly, um, Red Pill on Steroids. Like there's a list of people. Like there's a list of people who actually
Big
inspired it.
list.
And there's also a list of there's a list of people who actually requested it. So like I basically took everybody's request and shoved it all into one 1 hour and 28-minute video basically. Because I actually appreciate everybody's request. Even if it doesn't fit on my channel, I will always do it. I will always do a subscriber request for somebody.
If I did that, it would probably be like a 5 hour video. But Tico just
I
like
was able
puts in something all up.
Yeah, I basically shoved it into an hour-long video basically because I basically pulled out pictures and shit like that. And it was basically for people who inspired it and people who didn't know anything about their fucking history for the most part, and people who actually misheard history and misheard what people actually said. So like there's a list of shit in there. It's not just for black people. It's basically Germans and Irish. Um German isn't German. If you're German or Irish, you want to definitely check that out. If you're fucking a LBJ fan, you definitely want to check that out and hear what he actually said versus what everybody believes he said. If you're fucking if you're yeah, if you're basically a fan of like history, period, for the most part, and you want to actually, if you're black and
Bingo,
you don't
that's
know
me.
anything about your history in America, you don't believe black people were ever anything or ever be shit, basically, it's good to probably check this out as well too. But if you're
Hmm.
Irish and German, definitely check this out because you'll find out that Irish and German people lived alongside of black people a long time in the Americas, basically a long fucking time. They even fucking intermarried with black people in America, and it's just shit like that for the most part. And the sad part about that is like you got them in, they got documents of like Irish and German men in church with black men, or black women and black men basically doing baptisms and shit like that, getting married to each other and shit like that, going to church together, doing church services together. They literally got all these documents and this shit. So it's like, it's lovely. It's very lovely. But yeah, it's just the stuff like that. Different photos, especially at 5 Points. When I talked about 5 Points, when black people actually lived there, even though gangs in New York actually made it look like there was no black people that lived there and shit like that. but like you get to see the Irish, the Germans, and the black people living side by side in 5 points and shit like that, and it was literally a clean place basically versus how everybody painted it out to be. They painted it out to be this gritty, dirty place with a lot of uneducated people, when in fact they were very educated people for the most part, and they had a very good school system in 5 points at the time, and like it basically covers that too for the most part. So it's pretty nice. It's pretty nice. And the sad part about it is the poor people that lived there, they weren't as poor as everybody made them out to be. They actually were like, I would say just above working poor, I would say. And so like they had some money. I mean, they didn't have a lot of money, but they had some money to actually be able to like, have a decent life, not a great life, but like they basically had enough money to get by for the most part. And like, but like probably like I would say by today's standards, they probably would have like $100 in the bank just in case shit happens type thing. Whereas
Yeah.
90% of people don't even have that in their bank account just in case shit happens. But yeah, it's a lot of shit in that video tomorrow that's coming out. But it's basically a request from everybody for the most
Yeah,
part.
and dude, I hate that when certain people use history to like virtue signal. Like, well, I know this about history. One thing that I see a lot happening is like Indian slaves, Indian slavery, like in
Mm-hmm.
the American Southwest. Like, there's towns where it's called like Old Mission or like missions, and that just because they used to you literally like offer food to the Native Americans or in order to build these churches and build like the structures that we have today in the American Southwest,
Mm-hmm.
and even like going as far north as like Oklahoma. It's just like there were a lot, and then there were a lot of like Native Americans who would uh, sell Paiutes or like the non-equestrian or the equestrian tribes would capture non-equestrian tribes and sell them into white slavery,
Yeah.
and then like vice versa there'd be an exchange and stuff, and then like that's something that no one ever really like talks about, but yet they want to say that they're like all woke and stuff, and like there's just a huge
Yeah.
disparity. Just a huge disparity in the amount of and what information is focused on and how exactly it's portrayed.
Yeah, for the most part. And it's sad that it's got to be that way. And it's sad that people act like that. But it is what it is. At the end of the day, you got to actually take the good with the bad. And, like, you can't always be trying to say all this was bad. In fact, when, like, there were a lot of people doing good with their lives back in those days and shit like that. And there was a lot of people that were suffering. But there were a lot of people that, when they made laws, they were able to get around the laws and shit like that, which is actually something that I've actually noticed today where, like, you got a bunch of liberal white people saying that black people don't know how to find a DMV. They're so disenfranchised that they can't afford a ID. Just shit like that they just say stupidly about black people. When in fact, black people back in the day had to actually fight to actually vote. And they found ways around actually they were able to make it happen so they can actually vote. Because I remember when like the black people were like they said Emancipation Proclamation and they said pass the bill for black people to be able to vote. Like different states and different cities will put up stipulations on if you were black, which would actually would actually enables you to vote for the most part, which is actually pretty funny. Whereas like you basically had to jump through a bunch of hoops to actually be able to vote when you're black. And the sad part about that is, even though the Emancipation Proclamation went into effect, it took like 30 plus years in various different cities for slavery to actually end and actually die off for the most part. Because there's documents on, in New York where like it took like 30 plus years for slavery to eventually fizzle out for the most part, which is actually pretty funny. And then you got like Pennsylvania that was a little bit longer, and you got like other states that was like, about the same amount of time for the most part, because just because Lincoln signed some paper, that don't mean it actually was a thing. You still had to actually implement the shit over a long period of time for the most part. And the sad part about that, there's a lot of black people that actually bought up land because the stipulation for them to vote was you have to own land to vote.
Right.
So a lot of black people
Yeah.
were able to snatch up land in New York to basically be able to vote for the most part. And then you had the ones where like it's like, well, you have to be free, or you have to be educated, or you have to be, of a certain age, or you have to be, you know, you have to be a upstanding citizen basically to vote, or you literally have to do all this other extra shit for the most part to actually be able to vote. But the sad part about that is the sad part about that, even though black people were allowed to vote way before that, the sad part about that is they didn't really get to fully vote until later on in like the mid 1900s for the most part. Whereas white women, they were offered a chance to vote in the 1920s, and they were out there voting and shit like that when black people were actually impeded from voting, even though they were allowed to vote like years prior to that. You see what I'm saying? So the sad part about that is women can't really say they're oppressed when black people literally got barred from it. They would like literally turn black people away back in
51% of
those
the
days.
population.
Yeah.
They're half of the goddamn population. How can they be
They're actually,
oppressed?
I think they're like 53 or 54, working slowly towards 55% of the population. Women are. And the sad
Like
part about that is
marginalized. I understand, but like
they're not
in
marginalized.
in
The fact
certain
of the matter is
parts,
they're
in
not
certain
really.
parts of the
Women have never really been marginalized. The sad part about that is women never been marginalized. The problem with women is they pick certain jobs that get them low pay, so therefore they want to yell wage gap for the most part. Like, well, you can't compare a teacher's salary to a doctor's salary. You can't compare a fucking barista salary to a fucking engineer's salary. Like, it just doesn't work. You can't compare part time to full time. This is why you got this big ass gap, basically, because you put all this stupid shit in here. And the sad part about that, if people actually had half the common sense that they claim they had, they know that part time and full time don't go together, and you can't compare a barista's wage with the fucking engineer's wage, or you can't compare a fucking scientist's wage with a fucking a teacher's wage. Like, it doesn't work like that. You can't be throwing all this shit in a hat talking about, see, it's unfair. No. You actually got to do it properly. This is why you suck at statistics. This is why you suck at all this shit that you're trying to go to school for. You're trying to pretend like you're great at, because you suck at statistics and you suck at all this shit. This is why women have to doctor numbers to make their shit sound right. It's just facts. Why do you have to doctor your numbers? Why can't you do it on an up and up, basically? Because you can't, because you suck at it. That's why. You basically got to make something fit your narrative so hard. And it's sad, because the sad part about that, I got another video coming out tomorrow with rape numbers basically in it.
Oh shit! That's something that they like. That's something that the white women claim that they're
Yeah,
raped, or
yeah.
that
The sad part
people are
about
raped,
that,
but it's
I'm gonna
like
give you
they're
a little
raped the
taste.
least.
I'm gonna give you a little
They're
taste of the
raped the
shit that's
least.
actually in this video tomorrow that's coming
Mm-hmm.
out too. Women are only raped 28% of the time by men. 28% of the time, and that's pretty much overblowing the numbers basically. Women are actually raped 48% of the times by another woman. Let that shit sink in. Let that shit swirl around in your head real quick. Women are raped by women at 48% of the times. They're raped by men at 28% of the times. Yeah. Yeah. Only 32,000 women only 32,000 women in the United States. The number is 32,000 women basically that are raped and have babies basically. Only 32,000.
Unbelievable.
The sad part about that,
And it's
men are
like
actually
the rape
men are
culture.
actually raped. Men are actually raped like 32,000 women. I will say 40 something thousand women are raped in the United States. 92,000 men are actually raped in the United States. 92 fucking thousand.
Mm-hmm.
The sad part about that is
Damn.
when they break down the numbers for like heterosexual and man on man and sex women on man basically. The sad part about that is they don't have the women on man numbers, but they have the man on man numbers. So you could tell how this was being pushed basically. The man on man numbers are only 30% of that 92,000 men. So you can imagine what the women on man rate is. You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm
It's
saying right there?
probably higher. Yeah.
Yeah, the sad part about that is the women on the man on man rape is only 30% of the actual rapes that men actually experience. The rest are actually women. So if only 30% of 92,000
Well, it's because
would be
most of the
roughly
rapes come
about what,
from
like,
prison, and so it's same sex rapes, because most of the
no,
rapes come
same sex
from
rapes.
like
It even includes gay people too, gay men too. And the sad part about that is if only 30% of 90,000 men are raped by raped by a man of the same sex, then that leaves what, like all of what, like 40, 60 odd thousand, 60,000, 40,000, 50,000 to 60,000 men that are actually raped by women. That's more than the average women that's more than actual women that actually get raped in the United States still. Even if I blow up the numbers to like 42,000, more men get raped by women than women actually get raped, period. And the sad part about that, 48% of women are raped by women. Let that just sink in. 48% of women are actually raped by women, according to the CDC. Only 28% of women are actually raped by men. Like, let that shit sink in. Like, that's how sad this shit is. But the sad part about that is when you go to the men's side to actually go break it down for gender on gender, they basically only show you, they don't show you the men, they don't show you the women who rape men, they only show you the men who rape men. So they're basically trying to push a narrative that only men do raping, despite the fact that they show like 92,000 men, a little over 92,000 men are raped every year, but only 30% of those are actually raped by men, and they don't put the women's numbers in there. They try to skip over the women's numbers. They put in like a couple court cases where a man won $75,000 from a woman. They put in some other bullshit basically, but they don't give you any numbers on the women that rape men. Let that shit sink in. But they will add a caveat for you where they say, because of views and double standards, this, that, and the other, basically. Is basically what they'll say, basically, to actually negate not putting the fucking numbers in there for how many women rape men in the United States. They'll basically make excuses for the most part, and I talk about that shit, basically, and it's funny. It's sad and it's funny. And so, like, that one's coming out tomorrow, too, along with that other one that's a request, basically. And like, you may not like the hour and 28-minute one, but it's basically a subscriber request, and it got the list of people in the description box who all requested it, and it got the people who was inspired by it too in the box under there too. So there's a lot of people that I'm thanking and acknowledging who actually help inspire this video, basically. And there's a lot of people in this video who actually requested very different things that's actually in this video for the most part. So I'm actually giving thanks and actually praising people for giving me inspiration and people who actually requested this shit in a video. So definitely read the description box on that hour and 28-minute video.
For sure. But I mean,
because there's a list of people in there.
This video been going pretty long. I mean, I'm ready to end it.
All right, we can end it.
All right. This is the Baron Yam. The Baron Yam. BARON space YAM. If you're listening, please head over to my channel and subscribe, and just be wary of the double standards, and be wary of the fuckery, but then learn how to detach from it. If you're young, just learn how to detach, and don't become a men's rights activist or anything just because you see like hypocrisy and stuff. Do something because that's what you want to do, and that's what's going to make you happy. Don't get swallowed up in a political battle, because you'll fall for the same identity politics that we've just been discussing for the past hour and 17 minutes. So if you don't want to be the subject of one of our live streams, just focus on yourself and live your free, happy life. That's all.
Y'all have a blessed night, and be good to yourselves, and improve yourselves, and always worry about other men, but like always do your best to improve yourself 100% every single time. Always focus on yourself, always do better for yourself, and always do good for yourself. Y'all be blessed, and it was a pleasure doing this lovely live stream again. And definitely check out the thumbnail, because I think it's pretty funny if you didn't see it yet. But,
I didn't see it.
Have a good one.
All right. See you later.
See ya. Bye, niggas. Bye.